Right, mate. TAC Talk.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
I don't know what episode it is. I think it's like 15 or something like that. So we've been off for 6 months, mainly because I had a baby.
Yeah, you had a kid.
And time passed by, but I decided to spend more of my free days, at home and stuff with Tash and Ozzy. So now back on the podcast, and since we've last spoke, it's happened more recently, but like quite a lot of stuff has gone down in the CrossFit world.
Yep.
Most notably, Dave Castros get fired.
Let's talk.
In CrossFit. So mate, tell me your thoughts, because this is, from my point of view, I feel like this is really big, because we kind of got into CrossFit early days, when the mentality and the kind of culture is quite a bit different to what it was now, and the likes of Castro, who was the director of the CrossFit Games, he was also head of training for CrossFit, played a kind of integral part in the growth of the sport and the growth of the culture, I think, as well.
Sure.
So the way we viewed CrossFit, he's been very much
he's
kind
like
of the
synonymous.
epicenter,
Yeah, he's always been synonymous with CrossFit for sure.
And so I think was it last week?
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, so last week the owner of CrossFit, or the CEO, Eric Rosa, announced that he's fired Castro from his role as a director or the general manager of the CrossFit Games. What are your thoughts, man? Because it's big news.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't remember what day it was, but you wake up in the morning, you get your phone
messaged
out.
me earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Because obviously it would have happened in America,
Exactly. So wake up in the morning, you go on your phone, I go on Instagram, and I see morning chalk up, and it's like, oh no, it's Dave Castro. He posted it, but he reposted morning chalk's article saying, okay, that he's been sacked. And I was like, at first I was like, oh shit. So I messaged you, of course. But then the first thing that struck me was that it was on the morning chalk up. It wasn't from CrossFit.
Yeah, CrossFit didn't announce it.
They didn't announce it. So I thought that was the first thing that I found a bit weird.
I think just deviating slightly, CrossFit has been criticised ever since the Floyd 19 thing.
Yeah.
Of not being great with communication. And I feel like they've had a bit of time to correct that. And this is a good example of how they're still quite poor with communication. The fact that everyone found out that the head of the CrossFit Games has been fired via an independent news source is a bit shit on CrossFit path. But anyway, thoughts on it, mate.
I think that
what do you first think?
I mean, my initial thought was just oh shit, this is huge. But from a personal standpoint, I've always been a bit indifferent with Castro. I didn't dislike him. I didn't think he's amazing or anything. So I was just kind of this is obviously it's going to be big changes, but I'm here for it, man. Let's see what the landscape's going to look like in the coming months / years. I mean, the timing of it, I think, was a bit odd. Yeah. Just before
7 weeks before the Open.
Before the Open.
And he would have been doing I think he'd already done the Open workout.
Yeah. So of course, everything's locked in at this point. Yeah. They know what they're going to do. But they obviously have their reasons. I mean, looking at the comments, there seems to be a lot of divisive opinion. On it, in America, I mean, a lot of Americans, seem to be this is a really bad thing. But then a lot of Europeans, particularly English, have said, oh, this is a great thing. I've noticed there
is definitely a divide.
Split.
I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people seen Castro as kind of very America-centric, really, with regards to the games. It was America. Mm-hmm. And obviously, it's an American, started in America. The games has always been in America, but it's very much a global sport now. And there's got to be an equal amount of affiliates outside of the US as there is in the US now, around the world. So it is a global business, a global brand. But you are right, because when I seen the post, the first thing I did was go on the comments, because the comments always crack me up. And all the comments initially were oh, this is shit, this is woke and all that kind of stuff. He's getting fired for liking hunting or meeting Glassman and stuff like that. Everyone was going mental. But then I see a lot of UK athletes in particular post about it, and they seem seen it as more of a positive thing. So I do think there is definitely a divide between an American and a global kind of point of view on it. From my point of view, like when I seen it, I was well shocked. I didn't see it because only 2 days ago he was posting about the Open prep, or 2 days prior to it, he was posting about.
There was even a CrossFit video.
Yeah, CrossFit even shared it. So I don't even think CrossFit or the employees of CrossFit knew this was going to happen, which is, you know, most likely the case anyway when someone gets fired.
Well, I guess the nature of it. Because, I mean, Castro posted that I haven't spoken to Eric in 3 months, and he just called me up to fire me. So it must have been quite a. I mean, we don't know the details. We'll never know if this was something that's been planned, and they just decided to do it there and then. But you know, on the outside looking in, it looks very, very sudden kind of thing. You know?
Definitely.
It's like,
I think like when I first saw it, I was like, holy shit, like, this is big, because it kind of he seems like the last pillar of the kind of
the old era
of CrossFit and how it originally was. And I know Castro, he rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way with the way he acted at times, but the way I always saw him is I thought he just played the villain a lot of times.
He's a troll.
He did it deliberately to wind people up. And I felt like, personally, obviously I don't know him, and this is just my point of view, I always kind of seen that in him. So I kind of liked him. I liked his honesty. I always thought he was brutally honest. And I felt he always pushed the community forward, in a sense that, like, the workouts, for example, like in the Open every year, and he made a good effort just to drive that standard a little bit higher every year. So as a whole, collectively, the Open, or the people who took part in the Open, were always just getting a little bit fitter, whether that's putting muscle-ups in. And when muscle-ups were first in it, especially, remember that year when he put muscle-ups in, it was the first exercise? Yeah. It was an AMRAP, I can't remember the whole workout.
Yeah, I know.
But everyone was kicking off, but how many people probably got their first muscle-ups out that year? Like I thought he was always good at just like, not listening to haters, not listening to kind of like any, you know, people shouting from afar. He always had his kind of his vision, and he stuck with it. He pushed it, and he made mistakes, but I felt like he always corrected those mistakes.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Of course, there's been years.
Yeah.
I mean, like there was the year when I think it was at the Open, we had like ring dips, and loads of people were regional. Sorry, loads of people were pulling their pecs. And stuff. So like we've never seen that again. You know,
no, like I think we saw it. Well, I think because that was the way it was programmed, because that was a 21:59, wasn't it? I can't remember what it was paired with. It might have been dumbbell snatches into ring dips or something. I can't
remember.
But a lot of people. But he has made mistakes, but I always felt like he made an effort to correct them and, like, you know, again, progress the sport and see his own flaws, essentially.
Absolutely.
And for the most part, I thought he was a brilliant programmer. Like at the end of every year, of every game season, I never disputed like the outcome of the fittest based on his programming from the Open, what used to be the regionals, then the games. I always thought his programming was superb. Like, and he put a lot of effort into making the spectacle of the games. You know, the layout. Like apparently he was responsible for, like, you know, the layout where people would kind of progress through on the field.
You know, it makes it look like. I mean, he always said, you can do these any of these workouts you can do in your gym. But when you put it at the games,
it's got to be a spectacle.
It's got to be a spectacle, and you see it like it's a race.
Clear leaders,
clear leaders, exactly. You know, like I mean, like let's wait and see. I mean, everyone. Well, I mean, there are sections of people that are obviously skeptical about what the future, what lies ahead for CrossFit. But the way that I see it is, what if it goes right? You know, what if
as much as I said I kind of liked him and I appreciated him and I thought he was, you know, unbelievable at his job, I do see that, like, I do see his flaws as well. Like, it's very unusual in sport, in modern sport, especially big sports, like you think of like football, American football, golf or whatever, that the head of the sporting organisation is so forefront. So, you know, the head of the Premier League, for example, you don't know who the fuck he is. You know, the head of, like, you know, PGA or the European Tour, these guys aren't out on the courses riling people up and stuff like that. Whereas he was out on the floor, you know, enjoying himself, kind of directing things, and that was always kind of a part of CrossFit. But is it time that part of CrossFit just kind of fizzles out? If we really want to truly grow it as a massive sport and compete with, you know, big sports like American football, UFC and stuff like that, and get more prize money so athletes can do it professionally, do they need to kind of come away from that? Do the guys who are directing the sport need to be in the shadows? Because when Matt Fraser was on the Rogan podcast, one of his criticisms of Castro was that he basically essentially determined the fate of the games, but he was so visual and like, do you know what I mean? Like it was almost like it could appear that if he didn't like you, he could program it a certain way and make you lose, which I don't think he would ever do, because I think his integrity is very high. But I just think from just how it looks a bit odd, because he had friends. Like he was clearly friends. He was clearly friends with Rich. Do you know what I mean? And I wish everyone can have friends. It's not a bad thing, but just in modern sport, you wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
And I think CrossFit obviously looks at that and be like, well, we really want to truly grow the sport to compete with other sports and get the best, commercial deals, the best televised things and TV rights and all that kind of stuff. We need to come away from that, and maybe kind of like split it in a sense that, because I felt like Castro was like, he did so much. Do you know what I mean? Like he did the programming for the Open, the regionals, the games, including the team division, I believe. He seemed to control the logistics of the games. He controlled the layout of it. He controlled sponsors or whatever. He did so much. So like, if something happened to him and he wasn't there anymore, it would fuck the process up. So maybe as a company they looked at it and think, well, we need a guy whose pure responsibility is to do this, another guy who does this.
Yeah, they might split it,
and so on, which makes sense from a business point of view. But
I mean, what we need to obviously from the outside looking in, it's a shock to us all, and it looks like it's like a knee-jerk reaction. But they clearly have a plan of where they want to see.
And they've shown that they've been successful in business before. I think a lot of people are just kind of butthurt because it's what
it's
they
changed.
It's changed.
We fear what we don't know, and
Absolutely.
a lot of people obviously love CrossFit, but like they're at the same time they confuse CrossFit the sport with CrossFit the methodology. We're still all going to continue to do CrossFit, so people are speaking out saying, "Oh, you've just killed it." It's like no. It's CrossFit's still very much alive. It's still going to keep going. It's just that we don't know what it's going to look like.
What direction it's going to go.
It's going to go in, but let's just wait and see.
I mean, so I'm quite excited for the game season. I mean, there's hints that strength and depth is going to be a qualifier potentially. I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen, but just obviously they posted about.
It makes sense with
it's in London.
With London, with the way COVID is, a lot of European countries have more restrictions than what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a cracking event. Like they ran it really well. Like obviously we did it the first year as a team, and then the guys did it again in the second year. And both times it was fucking superb. Like the atmosphere was brilliant. Like everything about it was really good. I'd love to go and watch that. Like it'd be sick.
Yeah.
But it's interesting times for the sport. Like, but it seems like it's interesting times every year. Like a new thing seems to happen, but I'm kind of hoping now that we see a bit more consistency. That we have a rule book that is consistent, process that is consistent, that stays the same, and just a clear direction of the sport and how it's going to be for the next 5-10 years, and so on.
Yeah, like I said, I'm here for it, man. Regardless of what your opinion is, we're all going to watch the games this year. We're going to watch everything, whether you're positive about it or negative about it. You're going to watch it just to see what the outcome or what it looks like. So Yeah, well, it's funny. So obviously this Castro thing came out. It overshadowed kind of a little bit of I wouldn't say huge news because it's not. But we were talking about it where Matt Fraser started training Mallory O'Brien. Oh yeah, okay,
So obviously on the last podcast we were doing, we were doing it before and around the games time, and one athlete to look out for was Mallory O'Brien. I think she's 18 now. But at the time she was 17, and she ended up coming 6th or something like that
for a rookie season. At that age is
And she's just gone over. She was trained by a guy called James Townsend, but she's moved over to Matt Fraser, and this is the first one-to-one that he's had time-wise. How do you see that going, man?
I mean, she's got bags of potential, and clearly she's had an opportunity that you can't
turn down.
You can't turn down. If you've got a chance to train with the most dominant male in the history of the sport, then are you going to say no?
No.
You know.
Clearly, he's a very clever guy. He's a clever athlete. He did things the right way. You know, he periodised his training correctly. Everything was spot on. At a time when CrossFit changed more down that way with its with people training for the sport, and got a bit smarter instead of just doing shitloads of stuff.
Yeah, it was all about peaking at the right times.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the main reason why we messaged about it is because the comments were cracking me up.
Yeah.
Like everyone saying that she's like stabbed their original coach in the back and all this kind of stuff. But it's not unusual for people to move on. Like in sport, like tennis players and golfers, they kind of move on to different coaches all the time, and they feel like they need to make changes. And like with the sport of CrossFit, I do sometimes feel like coaches get more credit than they deserve as a whole in terms of athletes, not necessarily coaches in the gym. Because for the most part, because the sport's still young, up until recently, very few coaches truly developed a games athlete. Most of them were just really fucking athletic anyway.
Yeah, they
happened to go
good.
Train with a coach who was at the gym, who was closest to them, and the coach claimed to be the trainer of X. Do you know what I mean? When really it was just a luck of the draw. Like, we've had people come in our gym who are just absolute beasts, and they've represented our gym well. And it's not because our gym is necessarily any better than others.
Yeah, it's not down to
we just happen to have a good athlete come along, and like that, that will change in the future as people start picking up athletes at a younger age and turning them into potential games winners, which might happen with Mallory O'Brien and Justin Medeiros as coach and stuff like that. But like everyone was saying, this guy's done so much for her and stuff. I'm like, he probably has done stuff for her, but she's just a beast.
Yeah, she was good.
She was good because she was. Easy Mohammed trained her
beforehand,
when she was, I don't know, like 14.
Yeah, she must have been, even younger.
So she clearly had a lot of athletic potential anyway, but her being as good as she isn't down to him. It's down to her, and like she's just looking for someone who can hone her skills and take her to that next level.
Just give her that extra 1% or whatever it is,
which matters at that level. And like Fraser's clearly that guy. Like I think he'd be a brilliant coach. Like I listen to the way he speaks. He's very smart. You can already see slight differences in her approach through social media. Because I remember, she
doesn't post a hell of a lot.
Exactly, and I remember that's one thing I always thought about Fraser, was he very rarely posted on social media, but a guy who was the top of the sport, he very rarely posted. And it's because he was just fucking focused on winning the games. And I felt like since she's moved over, she's definitely less active on social media.
Yeah.
Definitely. She's, clearly training, not that I don't know, training harder, but slightly different approach. So
it's gonna be I mean, like, I've always, in my opinion, thought that Mallory, she will win the games one day. It's
maybe not yet.
Not yet. I mean, as long as Tia's there, I don't think anyone's touching that top spot. But once Tia's gone, it's open. But I think that she will win one day.
Yeah.
Be
interesting.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, anyway, last thing we wanted to chat about was obviously at TAC we've
some new programming.
Yeah, so we've introduced some new programming. So me and Tombo have been responsible for this. So we have the usual class programming that people follow. So that's what's on the whiteboard every day, and people can access that through SugarWOD. Well, it's the first thing that comes up when you're on SugarWOD. So you've got your class programming, which we do in the classes. It's designed to improve your general fitness. Build everything up at the same time. No biases. It's pretty well balanced between weightlifting, gymnastics, and what we call monostructural fitness. We've just introduced 2 new programs. All right, so we've introduced a weightlifting program. But before I talk about the weightlifting program, I want to talk about gymnastics bias program we've introduced, which me and you designed. And our kind of initial focus, we're going to break it into kind of 6 week blocks with focus changing every 6 weeks essentially, aren't we? So this initial 6 weeks, our main aim is just improving capacity on things like pull-ups and handstand press-ups. But I know you want to talk a little bit about the gymnastics program, mate. And then
yeah, I mean, like, I feel like gymnastics is always an area which people, they want to be able to do it, but like they just kind of lack they shy away from it because they don't have the structure, or you know, we've always, when you compare gymnastics to weightlifting, like everyone can lift a weight.
Yeah.
You know,
whether
regardless
it's 10 kilos or 100
whether it's
kilos.
10 kilos or 100 kilos,
Yeah.
you can lift it. Whereas when it comes to gymnastics, more often than not, either you can or you can't because it's your body weight.
Yeah.
But like, obviously with a little bit of structure, you know, you've got a pathway to kind of get your first pull up or your first handstand press up, whatever it may be. So I think it's a great thing for our members to be able to follow on the side. You know, like
I think so. With the program, well, the gymnastics one, we've it's still a CrossFit style program. It's just very biased towards gymnastics, basically, isn't it? So I would say it's kind of 60-70% focused on improving your ability in the primary exercises that we've chosen for that 6-week period. But it still has conditioning in, which for a lot of it is conditioning with the focus being gymnastics, but also we have non-gymnastics conditioning sessions in there just to maintain a level of fitness. We also have a squatting day in there just to maintain some strength. But for the most part, the focus is gymnastics. And you know, when you follow these programs, what you tend to find is you will probably lose a bit of your strengths in other areas, wouldn't you? So like, you know, you should maintain some level of fitness, but your fitness might decrease a little bit and your strength might decrease a little bit overall, because that's no longer the focus. But you know, I always think with a good CrossFit athlete, you're building blocks up at certain times. You know what I mean? Everything's not all moving up at once, because that's very difficult to do. You know, 1 minute we're going to try and build our strength up. Having that strength is a good foundation to then build this up, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So we're just kind of building things up slowly all over.
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast, isn't it? You know, you can't bring everything up at the same time, as you said. No. So you know, if you're going to focus on one thing, something else might just have to take a little back seat. But, you know, obviously not too much, but you know, it's the juggling act, isn't it? Yeah.
So Steve, so that's the gymnastics program. The other program we've released is a weightlifting bias program.
How many weeks?
So the weightlifting one's currently 19 weeks long, but it's going to be in 19-week blocks, whereas the gymnastics one's going to be in 6-week blocks. So the weightlifting one is kind of split into 2 phases. We have what's called a prep phase, and then what I've called a comp phase. Okay. So it's based on a structure that I learned from a guy called Tamás Ferreira, who's a Hungarian weightlifting coach, and he was the GB weightlifting coach for the 2012 Olympics. So he was the guy who was Ben's coach at Bryner's, and I met him through Ben, and I did one of his courses. And so the program design is very much like something he would do. So the initial 9 weeks is what I call the prep phase. So volume's a little bit higher. It's a lot of powers, a lot of squatting, a lot of pulls, all basically designed to give you that base to get stronger. Like, you'll get stronger doing this phase of programming, but it's all about getting the volume in, getting the reps in, and towards the end the reps reduce and we start introducing full lifts again. Right. But it's all about prep. It's all about prepping the body to progress. Then the next night we have a week transition, and then the 9 weeks after that, what I'd call the comp phase, where I introduce full lifts most days. So a typical week in the first 9 weeks might be like Monday, got hang power snatch, hang power clean, snatch high pull, snatch dead pull, back squats. Week 10 will be more like snatch, clean and jerk, snatch dead pull, back squats. So it's less exercises but more weight, less reps kind of thing. So that's kind of how it looks. Unlike the gymnastics one, it's just weightlifting.
There's no conditioning.
There's no conditioning. And the reason why that is because we need to allow for optimal recovery. The program's very tough. It's got a lot of volume in, it's got a lot of weight, and the focus of the program is to get you a hell of a lot stronger in your snatch, your clean and jerk, your back squat, all your auxiliary lifts, like pulls, deadlifts and stuff like that. If we start introducing other things like metcons or WODs, it won't allow you to recover efficiently to progress in the weightlifting program.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that a little bit with programming in general. And one of my kind of like pet hates is when people, and you know, this is through no fault of their own, because ultimately it's about enjoying it and enjoyment. But when you do a program, do that program. Like, don't be like, oh, I like that session, so I'm going to do that session on Monday, but oh, I like this session from this program, so I'm going to do this on Tuesday. So don't cherry pick. Every program should have a primary goal, and the whole program should be designed to help you achieve that goal. If you don't follow the whole program and cherry pick from others, you're going to dilute the effects of all the programs you're following. So if you're following a class program and you're taking snippets from the weightlifting program and you're taking snippets from the gymnastics program, you won't really improve in either. Like, really, not to the extent we want to.
Not to the potential you could if you were just doing one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Exactly. So my advice would be, pick a program, follow it, see it all the way through, follow it religiously, and you will see some gains. I mean, that weightlifting program it's been given to good weightlifters and seen plenty of success. So you will get super strong doing that. But if you want to get the most out of it, just follow the weightlifting program.
And you know, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, like, I've had, you know, for example, there was a period where I did a pull-up program.
Yeah.
I think it must have been about 12 weeks, and I won't say her name because she might not want to be mentioned on the podcast. But I had one particular member who came from day one. She could only do one pull-up, but then she came every single Tuesday.
Yeah.
Then after 12 weeks, she could do 10. You know, we did a test. And I was just like, well, because the volume was sufficient, but the programming, there was like a method to the madness, if you want, and if you just follow it,
it'll work.
It will work.
Yeah.
You know, it will work as long as you recover. I mean, okay, you're already as good as your recovery as well. If you're resting, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, of course that also plays a part.
Yeah.
But you know, as long as you show up, then it should work.
One thing I wanted to mention before was I'm sure a lot of people ask, like, who are these kind of programs aimed at?
Yeah.
And one thing I would say is, like, if you're new, the class program is for you. Like that, get to the classes. The value of your membership is in the classes. You need that coaching. You need to just, you know, improve your general fitness, get a bit of strength, get some awareness when it comes to lifting and those gymnastics movements that you do in classes before you start specialising. And what would you say about that? Yeah,
absolutely. There was, I mean, like, funny you say that, because over at TAC Oxford, there's a lad that's joined, and he used to play. He's only 19, and his background is football, so he used to play for Oxford City. Yeah. But he's like, you know, he's kind of fallen out of love with football, and he wants to start competing in CrossFit. He's like, I really want to get into it. Yeah. And I was like, okay, mate, like, best thing for you to do is just, like you said, just come to the classes. Don't worry about any kind of conditioning or specialised programming. Just
build up your base.
Get your foot in the door. You know, like, competing's a long way off. You know, like, you know, let's worry about that in like a year. Yeah. You know, but you know, I mean, to be fair to him, he's gone in feet first. Yeah. And every time I've been there, I've seen him, and he's doing the classes.
Oh, good.
So, like, yeah, you know, like, just, for anyone that wants to get into CrossFit and they think about competing, like, don't worry about that straight away. Just fall in love, fall in love with CrossFit just for what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
At first, you know, like,
So obviously got those two programs. We are in time going to be introducing other programs. But obviously it requires a lot of work, and we want to make sure that they're done right. So the weightlifting and the gymnastics are kind of gives us a chance to iron out any mistakes, make sure they're all good. I mean, we both believe they're good programs, but we've got to obviously give it time to see if it works. In the next few months, we're going to introduce a competitors program, are we? So that's going to be aimed at people who want to compete. I mean, these specialist programs are probably aimed at people who want to compete as well, but the competitors program will have more in it, with more of a focus, getting everything in. You know, probably consist of 2 sessions a day, and so on.
More volume,
yeah. And there's more focus on the kind of higher skill stuff as well, and doing them, you know, in workouts, which, you know, in the classes, we don't do as much high skill stuff because we want everyone to be able to take part.
Yeah, we want it to be inclusive
and be very inclusive. Also, we do introduce it at times, but we find that we want people to get as much enjoyment out of it as they can, and we don't want to frustrate guys and girls with overcomplications. Whereas the competitors one will be, it'll be aimed at people who want to do competition. So everything you'll see in a competition is aimed at improving that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Call it there.
We'll call it there.
Decent. Thank you.